You're not family. Sit with the kids. Tell me something. How do you react when someone says the one thing they can never take back? Do you shout? Do you cry? Or do you do what I did that night? Smile, lower your eyes, and let them think they've already won. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. My name is Eudora Vexley, and I was 72 years old the Christmas my daughter-in-law tried to humiliate me in front of a room full of people who suddenly found their wine glasses more interesting than my face. It happened in my son's house, or at least that's what everyone at the table believed. The dining room looked like something torn from a magazine. Gold ribbon on the chairs, tall white candles, flickering in crystal holders, a perfect glazed ham, and china with silver edges, everything polished until it gleamed. My daughter-in-law, Seraphine Drax, loved things that gleamed. She was 38, always smiling, always composed, always dressed as though someone important might be watching. That night, she wore deep red silk and the kind of expression that made strangers think she was gracious. I knew better. I had arrived with a pecan cake in my hands and a pinching feeling in my chest that I couldn't explain yet. My son, Alric, had hugged me quickly, too quickly. His eyes slid past me toward the kitchen, toward Seraphine, as if checking whether he'd done enough. That told me more than his words did. All evening, little things kept scraping at me. No one took my coat until I asked. My place card was missing from the table. Family stories were told with pieces shaved off. My pieces. Ah, you notice that when you've lived long enough. People don't always throw you out with a bang. Sometimes they erase you one careful inch at a time. Then dinner was announced. Everyone drifted toward the main table, laughing, settling in, claiming their places like it had all been arranged days ago. I stood there for half a beat too long, waiting for the obvious mistake to correct itself. It didn't. Seraphine turned to me with that soft, bright smile of hers and said, loud enough for every fork in the room to go still, "Oh, Eudora, you'll be more comfortable over there with the children. This table is really for immediate family." Immediate family. I looked at my son. He said nothing. That was the part that hurt. Not her. Him. But I didn't argue. I didn't give her the scene she wanted. I simply smiled and said, "Of course." Then I walked to the little card table in the corner, sat down between a bored 12-year-old and a little girl swinging her legs under her chair, and folded my napkin across my lap with steady hands. Under the table, my phone lit up in my palm. I typed 4 words. Now would be a good time. And less than 2 minutes later, I heard the front door open. What kind of mother gets told she isn't family and doesn't react? That's the question, isn't it? Because if you were watching me that night, sitting at a small table meant for sticky fingers and half-finished juice cups, you might have thought I was fragile, diminished, a quiet old woman accepting her place. You would have been wrong. I sat there, hands folded, listening to the hum of conversation swelling from the main table. Laughter rose and fell like a rehearsed performance. Glasses clinked. Someone complimented the wine. Seraphine's voice floated above it all, smooth and controlled, guiding the evening exactly where she wanted it to go. She was good at that, but this didn't begin at Christmas dinner. No, this had been building for years, layer by layer, omission by omission. After my husband passed, everything shifted. Grief has a way of exposing fault lines people pretend aren't there. Ulrich, my son, my only child, changed first, not all at once, slowly, subtly. He became polished, careful, the kind of man who weighs every word as if someone is always listening. Then Seraphine entered his life. At first she was charming, attentive. She brought flowers when she visited, asked questions about my health, my memories, my recipes. But over time, those questions stopped. The flowers stopped. And something else replaced them. Control. Not loud, not obvious, just precise. Invitations would arrive late, or not at all until I called. Family photos would appear online, smiling faces, holiday moments, and I would notice I wasn't in them, not even mentioned. Stories about how things used to be would be told incorrectly, and if I corrected them, Seraphine would laugh lightly and say, "Oh, memories can be tricky, can't they?" As if mine were the ones fading. And Ulrich, he never argued with her, not once. He would just smile, nod, change the subject, as if smoothing things over was the same as fixing them. So I adjusted, I observed, I waited. Back at that children's table, I watched it all again, just more openly this time. Seraphine hosting, like she owned not just the house, but the narrative. Ulrich leaning into it, laughing a little too loudly at jokes that weren't quite funny. Guests playing along, because that's what people do when they sense an imbalance. They align themselves with whoever seems strongest. And then there was me, placed where I could be seen, but not heard. Interesting choice. The little girl beside me asked, "Why are you sitting here?" I smiled at her. "Because someone thought I should." She frowned, as if that answer didn't make sense. Children notice things adults pretend not to. Under the table, my phone remained still. No response yet. But I wasn't worried. Because here's the thing most people misunderstand. Patience isn't weakness. It's timing. And tonight felt too deliberate, too polished, too arranged, which meant one thing. This wasn't spontaneous, and this was planned. And if they had planned something, then so had I. Just then, from somewhere beyond the walls of that perfect dining room, a car door slammed. I slowly lifted my gaze towards the front of the house, and for the first time that evening, I smiled. What happens when a perfectly controlled evening meets something uninvited? You could feel it before you even saw it. That shift in the air, that subtle pause in conversation, the kind that doesn't belong at a Christmas dinner filled with curated laughter and polished smiles. Then the front door opened, not gently, not hesitantly. It opened with purpose. Every head in the room turned at once, including Seraphine's, and for the first time all night, her expression didn't match the moment. Her smile lingered, but her eyes didn't. They sharpened. A man stepped inside, mid-50s, composed, wearing a dark overcoat dusted with the cold from outside. Behind him, a younger woman followed, clutching a structured folder against her chest like it contained something important enough to shift the room, which of course it did. My son stood up so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. "Can I help you?" The man didn't answer immediately. His gaze moved, calm, precise, until it found me. "Mrs. Vexley," he said with a slight nod. There it was, recognition. I rose slowly from the children's table, smoothing my skirt as I did. No rush, no hesitation, just enough movement to make everyone realize something they hadn't considered before. I wasn't surprised. The man stepped further into the room. My name is Brenner Holt. I'm the acting executor for the Vexley estate. You could practically hear the word estate land on the table like a dropped glass. Seraphine recovered first, of course. She always tried to. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said, her voice light but tighter now, stretched thin at the edges. We're in the middle of a private dinner. Brenner didn't even look at her. No misunderstanding, he replied calmly. I'm here at the request of Mrs. Vexley. And just like that, every eye in the room shifted. From her to me. It's interesting, the moment people realize they've misjudged you. It doesn't come with apologies, it comes with silence. Alric looked between us, confusion breaking through his carefully maintained composure. Mother, what is this? I met his gaze evenly. Something that should have been clarified a long time ago. That was the truth. Not anger, not revenge. Clarification. The woman beside Brenner stepped forward and placed the folder on the dining table, right in front of Seraphine's centerpiece. The candles flickered as the air shifted again. Inside were documents, clean, ordered, official. Seraphine didn't sit down. She stayed standing, as if refusing to lower herself into whatever this moment was becoming. This is inappropriate, she said quietly. You're making a scene. I walked forward then, slowly, deliberately, each step measured. No, I said, stopping just short of the table. I'm correcting one. That was when Brenner opened the folder. Paper slid against paper. Crisp. Final. Alric frowned, trying to piece it together. I don't understand. This is my house. Brenner finally looked at him. You reside here, he said. A small distinction, but in that room. It sounded like something breaking. Seraphine's fingers tightened against the back of her chair. I noticed that, the way her control slipped. Not fully, not yet, but enough to show the crack forming beneath the surface. Guests began shifting in their seats, no longer comfortable, no longer certain where to look. The performance had stopped, and something real had taken its place, and real things don't follow scripts. Brenner adjusted the document slightly, then glanced around the table. Perhaps, he said evenly, it's time everyone here understands exactly who this house belongs to. And just like that, the room stopped breathing. Who really owns the life you're living? That question settled over the room, like something heavy, something no one wanted to touch, but no one could ignore any more. Brenner didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply began. Several years ago, he said, sliding a document forward, following the passing of her husband, Mrs. Vexley restructured all major assets into a protected estate. I watched their faces as the words landed, confusion first, then calculation. Alric stepped closer to the table, scanning the pages as if the truth might rearrange itself if he looked hard enough. Restructured how? He asked, his voice no longer steady. Brenner answered without hesitation. Into a trust, a pause, the kind that stretches. And who controls it? Alric asked. Brenner didn't look at him this time. He looked at me. She does. There it was. Simple. Clean. Final. You could almost hear the room recalibrate. Seraphine let out a short breath, something between a laugh and disbelief. That's not possible, she said quickly. Alric inherited everything, That's what we were told. No, I said quietly. That's what you assumed. Her head snapped toward me, the softness gone now, replaced with something sharper. Then why? Why would you let us live here? I finished for her. I held her gaze, because it was easier to observe. That landed harder than anything Brenner had said. Alric straightened, tension pulling through his shoulders. Observe what exactly? I turned slightly, letting my eyes move across the room, the guests, the table, the carefully curated life built on something they had never questioned. Whether this was still a family, I said. Silence answered me. Brenner continued, his tone steady, procedural. The trust outlines full beneficiary transition to Mr. Vexley, contingent upon the preservation of family unity and equitable inclusion of the primary trustee. Seraphine blinked, once, twice. Equitable inclusion, she repeated, as if the phrase itself offended her. Brenner nodded slightly. In simpler terms, Mrs. Vexley cannot be excluded, diminished, or deliberately repositioned outside of the family structure without consequence. Now the room shifted again. Not confusion this time. Understanding. Slow. Uncomfortable. Unavoidable. Ulrich ran a hand through his hair. This is absurd. It's Christmas dinner. You're turning this into some kind of legal... No, Brenner interrupted gently. The legal framework already exists. Tonight simply activated a clause. Activated. Oh, such a precise word. Seraphine's composure cracked then, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Her voice dropped, tight and controlled, in a way that suggested it was barely holding together. This is manipulation, she said. I didn't respond to that, not yet, because this wasn't about labels. It was about consequences. Brenner closed part of the folder, leaving just enough visible to make it clear this wasn't finished. Given the events witnessed this evening, he said, glancing briefly around the room, Mrs. Vexley now has the authority to initiate immediate re-evaluation of beneficiary status. Every eye turned to me again, different this time, no longer dismissive, no longer polite. Now they were watching carefully, because suddenly I wasn't the woman at the children's table anymore. I was the one holding the structure of everything they were sitting in. Brenner stepped back slightly, giving me space. Mrs. Vexley, he said, how would you like to proceed? And just like that, the entire evening, the entire house, the entire illusion waited on my answer. How do you respond when the room finally understands who you are? Not who they assumed, not who they reduced you to, who you actually are. I let the silence stretch, not to intimidate them, but to let the moment settle properly. Some things need space to be understood. Then I spoke. Nothing that's happening tonight is sudden, I said, my voice steady, carrying easily across the room. It only feels that way because none of you were paying attention before now. I looked at Alric first. The estate was never transferred to you directly. It was placed into a trust, legally structured, documented and explained. You chose not to read it carefully. His jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Then I turned to Seraphine. The clause you triggered tonight wasn't hidden. It was written in plain language. If I am excluded, diminished, or treated as something outside this family, control does not pass forward. Her lips parted, but no words came this time, because now there weren't any that would fix it. Brenner stepped in, precise as ever. Effective immediately, beneficiary privileges are suspended pending formal review. Financial access tied to the trust will be temporarily restricted. A full legal reassessment will determine future distribution. That was the logical end of it. Clear, structured, complete. But reality doesn't stop at logic. It moves into consequence. The room unravelled quickly after that. Guests gathered their things in quiet discomfort, avoiding eye contact as they slipped out one by one. No one wanted to be associated with what they had just witnessed. Not the humiliation, and certainly not the shift in power. Seraphine didn't leave. She stood there, very still, as if recalculating every decision that had led her to this exact moment. The control she valued hadn't disappeared. It had simply failed her. "This won't hold," she said, finally, quieter now. "We'll challenge it." "You're welcome to try," Brenner replied calmly. Alric didn't speak to her, not then. He just sat down slowly, staring at the documents like they might rearrange into something more familiar if he waited long enough. They didn't. In the weeks that followed, everything changed, exactly as the structure required. Legal meetings were scheduled, account access was frozen, spending was reviewed. The lifestyle they had built, so effortless on the surface, suddenly required justification, documentation, permission. Seraphine's social circle shifted almost immediately. Invitations slowed, then stopped. People who admired stability tend to step away from instability just as quickly. Alric came to see me, not once, several times. The first visit was tense, defensive. He asked questions, tried to find gaps, tried to understand how he had missed something so fundamental. By the third visit, the questions changed. They became quieter, more honest. "I didn't think you'd ever enforce it," he admitted one afternoon. "I didn't think I'd need to," I replied. That was the truth of it. I hadn't wanted control. I had wanted balance. Respect doesn't require dominance, but it does require recognition, and that had been missing. As for the house, no, I didn't take it back from them. Not entirely. That would have been reactionary, inefficient. Instead, the trust was restructured, conditions tightened, ownership remained where it had always been, with me, but future transfer became dependent on demonstrated behavior, not assumption, clear terms, clear expectations, and for the first time in years, clear boundaries. A month later, I hosted dinner. My table, my arrangement, my rules, nothing extravagant, just warm light, simple dishes, and space for conversation that didn't feel rehearsed. Alric arrived early. He didn't sit down right away. He waited, watched me, then asked quietly, "Where would you like me to sit?" I took my place at the head of the table before answering. "Here," I said, gesturing properly this time, "with family," and that's where he sat. No performance, no correction, no one being moved aside, just understanding, finally placed where it should have been all along.